For years, people have argued about what went wrong with modern Star Wars. Some say it was politics, some say it was bad writing, some say the franchise just lost its magic. But if you really break it down, the problem runs deeper than any one issue, because Star Wars didn't just change, it became confused. When Star Wars: The Force Awakens released, it felt like a return to form. Familiar tone, classic structure. A new generation stepping into a legendary story. Fans were introduced to new characters, especially Rey, a mysterious scavenger with a hidden past. There were questions, there was build-up, there was potential, and for a moment, it felt like Star Wars was back. But then came Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and everything changed. Not just the story, but the direction of the entire trilogy. Characters started acting differently. The tone shifted, and storylines that were set up before were suddenly abandoned. The biggest example? Luke Skywalker. For decades, Luke was the symbol of hope, the one who believed in redemption no matter what. But here, he was portrayed as broken, detached, almost unrecognizable. Some people appreciated the risk, but a lot of fans felt like they were watching a completely different character. At the same time, new characters were introduced and pushed forward, but without the development needed to make people truly connect. And that's where the conversation started shifting. Not just about story, but about why certain decisions were being made. A lot of fans began to feel like the movies were focusing more on messaging than on storytelling. But here's the part most people miss. That alone wasn't the real issue, because Star Wars has always had themes. Rebellion versus control. Hope versus fear. Light versus dark. That was never the problem. The real problem was this: there was no clear vision. Each movie felt like it was reacting to the last one. Instead of building towards something, it was constantly correcting itself. By the time Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker released, the story felt rushed. Plotlines were rewritten. New twists were introduced out of nowhere, and major moments lacked emotional weight. It didn't feel like a planned ending. It felt like a course correction under pressure, and that's when the divide became impossible to ignore. Fans weren't just disagreeing, they were arguing about what Star Wars even was anymore. Some blamed the characters, some blamed the writing, some blamed outside influences, but when you step back and look at the full picture, it all comes back to one thing: a trilogy without a roadmap. Different directors, different priorities, different ideas of what the story should be, and no single, unified direction tying it all together. That's why moments didn't land the way they should have. That's why character arcs felt inconsistent. That's why the emotional payoff just wasn't there. Because Star Wars wasn't telling one story. It was telling 3 different versions of one. And in the middle of all that, the audience was left trying to piece it together. That's why the backlash was so strong. Not just because things changed, but because they changed without purpose. And that's the difference. Star Wars has always evolved, but before it felt intentional. This time, and when a story that big loses its direction, people notice. Not because they hate it, but because they know what it's supposed to be.